Welcome into the program, everybody. I'm Joel Klatt. This is Breaking the Huddle, and it is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It is the one fans deserve. Can't wait for this weekend, by the way, in college football. It is a prove-it weekend. We're finally going to see some games and some teams, more importantly, tested like they have not been tested before. But first, what I want to get into is my top 10. We're going to talk with Lance Leipold, the head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks. I've been raving about him on my podcast all week long, and so we're going to get with Coach. Then we'll get to your questions out there, and we will ask some questions from you, the fan, as we finish things up. But first, let's get into the top 10 as I see them right now. At the top, folks, this is very easy. The number one team is an easy vote. It's Georgia. If I had a vote in the AP, which I don't anymore, thankfully, it would be Georgia. Now, Georgia, for me, is getting into that territory where it's either Georgia or the field in college football. And if you forced me to bet and lay down some money, I think I would have to take Georgia right now. That's how good they're playing. Now, should we have expected this? Yes, of course. They're really talented. They're one of the most talented teams in the country. They're the defending national champion. But there's something else. This isn't as talented as a defense in particular as they had last year. Remember all those draft picks, and maybe not even as talented of a team, but they're playing almost better. Why is that? It's about confidence. Folks, when they beat Alabama, again, it wasn't about the national championship per se. It was about beating Alabama. They had not beaten Alabama since 2007. They were 0-7 since that game as an overtime win, 26-23 back in 2007. Now they beat Alabama, and they put to bed those 7 straight losses in which Georgia was a top 10 team in every one of those losses. And all of a sudden, now they have this catapult of confidence because they beat the one program that they needed to beat. Very similar to a couple of years ago when Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers went in and beat Bama in Tuscaloosa. And then after that point, they were unstoppable, and you saw them play with a level of confidence that we had not seen prior to that. That's the way I'm viewing Georgia right now. So if it's Georgia or the field for me, I'm taking Georgia. Okay, as we move on, I'm going to go with Ohio State at number 2. Ohio State, obviously good on offense. They've got a prove-it game against Wisconsin this week. Alabama at 3. Alabama, still some things to iron out, but you get the sense that they will iron those things out after that close win against Texas a couple of weeks ago. Michigan, I've got at number 4. Michigan's a really good team, folks, and they are burying their opponents, which they should. Their 3 non-conference opponents have been a combined 0-9 so far this season. That is just horrendous. It does show some maturity, though, and it shows me that this team understands how to handle their business. Because what should a great team do against a preseason schedule like they've had? They should go out there and beat them by 50 points, which is exactly what they've done. Average margin of victory, 50 points. They should be scoring as much as they have in a generation, which they are. Haven't done this since the early 1900s. This team is a really good team, but I can't wait to see them this week against Maryland, Big Noon. Saturday, Gus Janey and I will be there, and they're going to get tested for the first time in a big way, in particular by that wide receiver core from the Maryland Terps. All right, 5, Oklahoma. Just saw them last week, and that team, don't sleep on Oklahoma. This could be a version that could be even better than what we've seen prior. I loved what I saw from Dylan Gabriel. This run that was a 70-yard run early in this game was terrific. He's got no panic in his game. He's very smooth, and he operates that Jeff Lebby system with complete control. He's got history in it. He played for Lebby dating all the way back to UCF. Now they're back together at OU. They were running the ball well with a really physical, tough offensive line, and their defense played as well or better than I've seen them play in, a decade. Now, granted, it was against Nebraska, so they also have a prove-it game. They've got K-State this week. As we move on here, 6, I've got Clemson, 7, USC. Both of those teams going to be tested this week at Wake for Clemson, at Oregon State for USC. That Oregon State team was 6-0 at home last year, including wins over Washington and Utah. So USC's got a tight one this week. Oklahoma State is going to be number 8 for me. And as we round it, I've got Penn State and Texas. Really quickly on Penn State, folks. Penn State is sneaky this year because they fixed their biggest issue from what hurt them a year ago. This is a team that I thought was going to be really good offensively last year under their new coordinator, Mike Yurcich, but they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't figure out their offensive line, and that put a ton of pressure on Sean Clifford, their quarterback. That's not a position that he was going to be successful in. Now they have this guy, Nick Singleton. This dude is legit. He was the number one running back recruit in the country. They get him there at State College, and now what has he done? He's gone out there, and they don't give him the rock probably enough. But what has he done? Led the country in yards per attempt at 11. I mean, they're fixing their run game, and if they can play that style of football, watch out for Penn State. I think James Franklin's got something that quietly could be undefeated against Michigan later this month. They've got their toughest test, Ohio State, at home. That's another game that Gus Jenny and I will likely be at. So Penn State quietly making the Big Ten East the best division in football. Why is that? Because I've got 3 of those teams from that same division in my top 10. That's what the running game is doing for Penn State. They are that good. It protects their defense. It protects their quarterback. All right, speaking of a team that is playing better than we expected, the Kansas Jayhawks, 3-0, road win over West Virginia, road win over Houston. How is this happening, folks? They were in the pit of despair in college football for what seemed like years. Couldn't get it right. Then Lance Leipold rolls in there, and he is going to join us next. The head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks right here live on Breaking the Huddle. All right, welcome back into the program, and really excited to be joined by, and I know he's not going to want to hear this because, like, Nick Saban will call this rat poison, my early favorite for National Coach of the Year, Lance Leipold, the head coach for the Kansas Jayhawks. 3-0 Jayhawks, 2 wins on the road, 1 against West Virginia. Last week beat the AAC favorite Houston Cougars by 18 in their own building. Coach, I said it earlier on my podcast this week. I said, you're doing God's work. You guys are doing great, man.
Well, I appreciate it, Joel. It's great to be with you. I'm really proud of our players, our staff, and the progress that we've made really over the past 9 months. Really, when you look at it, the timing of our hire a year ago was very difficult, but I thought the last quarter of the season, the month of November, we started to make some great strides. We were able to utilize that in the winter conditioning, spring ball through the summer. And I knew we were getting better, Joel. I just didn't know what strides, and now we've gotten off to a good start, but we got a big test coming here Saturday.
Well, and that test is like a good old-fashioned Final Four matchup. Could have been the national championship in basketball last year, but Duke lost. You know, and you always hear the jokes. A lot of the basketball quote-unquote schools are doing well this year. You and Duke in an undefeated against undefeated matchup this week. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the process because I think, and I said this in my podcast earlier this week, Coach, I think teams and fan bases and athletic directors don't understand that you can be losing games and be getting better. It just depends on where you start. And I gave this old adage of you got to lose big sometimes in order to lose small. You got to lose small before you can win small, and you've got to win small before you can win big. Last year, yes, you guys beat Texas on the road in that great environment, and everyone made it about Texas. In our business, that's what we do. We focus on the bigger brands. Then you went out and I think it was you lost to like TCU by 3 and West Virginia by 6. Sure. But in hindsight, like you said, in the month of November, you guys were getting better. And that losing small step was important for your program, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And you made great points all the way through about the process of building a program and a team in a rebuilding situation. As we started the month of November on our Monday meeting, I started talking about, if you ever want to play in December or January, you need to play well in November. And unfortunately, we played our rival K-State and they took it to us pretty good. We had a couple guys get hurt with broken leg. We just had the air taken out of us. And I was kind of like, wow, that talk really is worth it. But then the next week, we went down to Austin 1-8 and we know that story, but I think he did a great job of hitting the high points. Cause to me, even though we lost, it was how we went back to work the next week and went down to Fort Worth and how we played and then came back and finished the season that I think has made this this program take the steps. And along the way, though, as you said, there's a fine line. You can't be in the moral victory business. Okay. We know how we're evaluated, but like you said, there's a lot of internal steps of accountability, attention to detail, progress in other ways that you look at that are good measuring sticks that you've got to try to reinforce as you build a program that's been down as long as this one has been.
Well, I mean, it's been over a decade. You guys haven't won over 3 games since, I think, 2009, as you know. And so you knew what you were stepping into. You don't do this without quality leadership, without players playing really well in key position. Jalen Daniels, I've enjoyed watching him on tape, watching him operate the system. What type of leader is he behind the scenes?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that. He's fun to watch, isn't he? And the thing about him is he's got energy, he's got charisma. You can coach him hard. He can let things slide after a mistake or a turnover. But he's really taken a hold of what we're doing offensively. We're trying to be as multiple as possible with personnel groupings, different various things in the running attack, and that's really helped open up our passing game to keep us in a balanced type format. Everybody says they want to be balanced, but I'm looking at hopefully, knock on wood, we stay consistent. We're not in third and long much, and we're doing some things. And so Andy Koldnicki, our offensive coordinator, can pretty much go anywhere on that play sheet, and it's a big one that what he wants to do. And Jalen's command of it and understanding has really been remarkable. He put the time in on his own this summer. I could walk down the hallway, not even knowing he's in the building, and there he is watching film, taking notes.
I was raised by a former Marine, and he coached high school football, and my dad would always say you treat winners like losers and losers like winners. Generally, teams that don't win, you need to pump their confidence up. Teams that are constantly winning or winning for the first time, you need to try to keep their nose to the grindstone a little bit. So what has it been like so far, 3-0, facing 3-0 Duke? What has the week of practice been like? Have the guys come back in and been prepared and as focused as what they have been in the past?
I think so. There's some things at the end of today's practice. It would be like you were out there listening and watching that I tried to reinforce again in the details and not forgetting what got you to this point and things like that as we get closer to kickoff. But rewind a little bit to last year, and there are some things as we went through and kind of talk about our style, how we go about it as a staff, because a lot of this staff has been with me a lot of places, or the 2 places before, I should say, but for many years. As I tried to tell them is that we're not going to coach the score. We're not going to coach our record. We're going to coach how we go about it. And our standard is our standard, and the expectations are the expectations. So, and in fact, kind of following up what you said, there'll be times when you win what could be a big game, it just gives you an opportunity to play in another one. And then, we're going to expect the same attention to detail and intensity, if not even a little bit more.
Coach, there's going to be speculation about open jobs out there. And I'm not going to ask you that question. One, I respect your players too much. I was a player, and they don't need that type of distraction. And I'm just going to tell you, I hope you stay, because you're building something really cool at Kansas, and I think it would be a great model for the rest of college football to realize that, listen, anybody can do it if they get the right guy and they get the right players and everyone's pulling in the right direction. Any program can go and find success. And you know what? It's been really fun watching you so far. And by the way, behind the scenes, I'm pounding the table. I want to get to Lawrence. I want Big Noon Saturday to come to Lawrence, Kansas.
Well, we do too, and we'd love to have all of you. And with your statement there, which I appreciate, I could not agree with you more. And certain jobs are meant for certain people. I've kind of been a sports junkie and a sports fan my whole life, and but if you look at Buffalo and Kansas aren't on everybody's list to throw in their resume, but I feel that these are jobs that fit for the right reason and the right challenges. And, the good Lord puts us here for a reason. And my wife and my family are extremely happy here. And as I said, we expect to be here a long time.
All right, there he goes. Lance Leipold, undefeated Kansas Jayhawks. They take on Duke. When we come back, questions from Fansville. I get out there. What are you curious about? I've got answers. All right, welcome back to the program. Breaking the Huddle here. I'm Joel Klatt. That was awesome to talk with Coach Leipold. I want to get to your questions, though. Let's go out to Fansville. Let's get some questions from Fansville here into the program. Let's get it started. What do we got first here? All right, it says, let's see. Why is Minnesota being overlooked? That comes in from John. Okay, John, I don't know if they're being overlooked as much as it is we're just not used to talking about Minnesota as a favorite in the Big Ten West because we normally see your Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern. And that's what we've seen. That's been the history of the Big Ten West Championship, in particular since I've been calling the Big Ten Championship game. This will be my 8th one, and that's all I've seen in the championship game. So we just haven't seen it. But I'm here to tell you that you should start looking at Minnesota, and everybody should start looking at Minnesota. They run the ball well. They're coached well at each line of scrimmage. They play pretty good defense. And when you look around the Big Ten West right now, Iowa can't score. Wisconsin's still struggling on offense, and they've got to go to the shoe this week. That would be their second loss of the season. Northwestern's not what they have been over the last couple of years, and Nebraska's a total dumpster fire. Like, when you look at the teams that have the potential to win the division, you start to narrowly focus on Minnesota. I'm not going to be shocked at all if Minnesota goes to Indianapolis and represents the West in the Big Ten championship game. And then PJ's going to get in his boat, and he's going to row himself down from Minneapolis all the way to Indianapolis. He's just going to be like, hey, baby, let's go. And he's going to get all the boats there, and they're going to line up. They're going to rope themselves off, and it's not going to be sailgating. It's going to be row-gating, and they're just going to row themselves all the way down to Indianapolis. And you know what? Gus, Jeannie, and I, we're going to love it. I can't wait to have new energy. I think that they're going to be there. All right, what's next? All right, next, Evan chimes in and he says, how would you rate OU's performance against Nebraska? And also, what game is the biggest one to watch this coming weekend? Well, I already kind of talked about Oklahoma in my top 10 earlier in the show. But there are some great games to watch. So Evan, if you're looking at games to watch, there's 6 top 10 teams this week that I think are going to be in really tough games. And I'm going to bring up 2 of them. Okay, so A&M plays Arkansas and USC goes to Oregon State. First of all, folks, if you're into, the Fox Bet app and you go and you look, A&M's favored by 2 and the total is 49 in that game. That doesn't make any sense. Arkansas is one of the best rushing teams in the SEC, while A&M cannot stop the run, and that's the one thing that you've got to do against Texas A&M is force them into a game in which they're one-dimensional on offense, and when you do that, they have fallen woefully short. So I would think that Arkansas is going to win this game outright, and the total points in all A&M games to this point this season is 88. In a defensive-oriented game with a lot of run game, in particular from Arkansas, you really think these 2 teams are going to go over 49? Absolutely not. I'm hammering Arkansas and the under in that one. That's the game I'd be looking for. And then, by the way, USC goes to Oregon State. That is a sneaky tough game. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Oregon State 6-0 last year at home under Jonathan Smith. It's a team that does not turn the ball over that much, only 3 so far on the year. Meanwhile, USC desperately needs turnovers for their defense to be effective. 2 of those 6 wins for Oregon State at home last year, Washington and Utah. They will not be overmatched in this game. It won't shock me at all if that's closer than the experts think, and it won't shock me at all if Oregon State actually wins that one. All right, next question from Fansville. The next question says, more likely CFP representative, the winner of the Big 12 or a 2-loss Big 10 West champ? I'm going to go with Big 12 on this one. And the reason is that West champ is still going to have to compete with what I think is going to be an incredible team that makes it out of the East. We've got Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, let's not forget, in particular with their new run game. And they would have to face that team in the Big Ten championship. Meanwhile, in the Big 12, you've got 3 teams that I think are going to be really good by the time we finish this season. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas, all 3 of them in my top 10 currently. We saw the potential of Texas in that loss against Alabama. Oklahoma State, they're going to continue to continue to play well on offense and be explosive. And OU, if they're as balanced and tough on defense as what we saw against Nebraska last week, then the sky's the limit for the Sooners. So I would go Big 12 over Big 10 West in that scenario. All right, time for one more. What else do we got from Fansville? It says, who has a better resume than Penn State through 3 games? Listen, excellent point, Jay Fox. 2 road wins, Purdue, at Auburn. I get it. I'm going to throw one out there, and we just talked to their head coach. How about Kansas? 2 road wins as well, one against West Virginia, a team that's not bad in the Big 12. And then they went into the AAC favorite, Houston, beat them by 18. You can't argue with that. I think they should have been ranked. Come on, AP voters. Do it. Do it. If Kansas beats Duke, do it. Rank the Jayhawks. Do the right thing. All right, we'll be right back to finish things out here on Breaking the Huddle.
Let's go Irish! Let's go! The Oklahoma State Cowboys are the best team right now in the Big 12. The Rocket Man, Roger Clemens, catches by the 50-yard. Tom Izzo! Barry switched it. The Rockets! Biggie! Ricky Williams!
Big Noon Kickoff this weekend. We are going to be live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, as Michigan gets ready to take on Maryland. Arrive early. We're going to be over at Pioneer High School if you're there in Ann Arbor. Kickoff starts at 10 a.m. Eastern. Big Noon Saturday, noon Eastern. Gus, Jenny, and I will have the call when we figure out if Michigan is for real or if they are not. That's coming up Saturday. Thank you for watching Breaking the Huddle. This has been brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It is the one fans deserve. Folks, enjoy college football this week.